Jonathan Crespo is here. He's the musical entertainment supervisor for Carnival Cruise Lines, and he goes around the country and probably the world too, auditioning musicians. And he's probably spent more time on a cruise ship than all of us put together. Please welcome Jonathan Crespo. Jonathan went to school at Humboldt College in Toronto, where he was a trumpet major, and I think you grew up in South America.
I was actually born in South America, and parents moved to Canada when I was about 3 years old, and now I live in Miami. So I pretty much bounced across many borders. So that's how my life began.
How long have you been working for Carnival?
I've been with Carnival for 10 years now. I started out in 1996 as a show band musician, trumpet player in the show bands. A couple years later, I was promoted to musical director, who is the onboard supervisor for the musicians on board the vessel and the liaison between the office personnel and every musician on board. And 2 years ago, I was promoted into the office, which is what I do now, which is a lot of recruiting and auditioning. 10 years ago, I had a friend that was on a ship. He said, hey, we have an opening coming up, what do you think? And it came at just the right time because I was at a crossroads, and it was perfect. It was perfect. I said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. A couple of weeks later, I found myself in Los Angeles, and 10 years later, here I am. I took some time off in between. I did some touring, I did some recording, I lived down in Atlantic City for a little bit, and did some stuff in Vegas, but I came back to Carnival, and I've been with them ever since.
You still play?
I do still play. I was actually recently doing a little playing in Sarasota, and I do a little jamming here and there, South Beach and Fort Lauderdale and so forth, living in Miami now, so it's nice. Yeah, I definitely do play. I can't, playing for me is pretty much like breathing. I've been involved with music my entire life, and my trumpet to me has brought me everything that I have. It's brought me everything. I've been able to see parts of the world I probably never would have gotten a chance to see. I've been paid to see all this and to play my horn. To date, 2 years I've auditioned just over 1,000 musicians, and that's worldwide. Australia, New Zealand, Hungary, and Bulgaria, and of course North America, Mexico, everywhere. I'm all over.
You just go see the shows that the musicians put on, or?
Actually, the way it works is they will contact us by word of mouth, by our website, by any means that they can find out. They'll call us, and I'll speak to them, see what instrument they play, what they're interested in doing, and we take it from there. We schedule an audition. And they will play for me. It's a sight reading audition. Those skills are very necessary for sight reading, for being in a show band. And that's basically how it works. They call us up and we audition them one-on-one.
So you don't really hire bands, you hire musicians.
We do hire bands. For the show band, we hire individually because the musicians come and go at different points in the span of the ships, for example. Some people are there for their third month, only doing 4. Somebody coming in, it's their second week. We do have lounge bands like we have, like you saw in the video, on the DVD, and they are hired from all over the world and trios and so forth. For the show band specifically, we hire individually. For the other lounges, they are hired as a band, as a trio, or as a soloist.
Does everybody work the same amount of time? Is it a 4-month commitment? Or?
For the show bands, it's usually a minimum of 4-month commitment that we ask for. For others, it could be 6 months, some 8, depending on their contractual agreement, where they're from, for example. But contractually, for a lot of the people, we have some bands that are from the Philippines, and they come on board, and they actually prefer staying on for that amount of time, which works well for us. For the show band musicians, it's a little different. 4 months is the minimum we ask for. We have people that have done 6 months. We have done people that have done 7 months. I once did 13 straight months.
Wow.
How I survived, I don't know.
Well, how many bands or musical groups are on a typical ship?
On a typical ship, you're looking at an average about 25 to 28 musicians on board. There are 8 to 10 piece bands in the show bands, and then you have the other musicians in the other lounges. On our bigger ships, on our Conquest class ships, which are 110,000 ton ships, we have approximately 35 musicians spread out through the ship. So playing in different lounges, jazz trios, and so forth.
And so you also must hire the technicians as well. So.
We do hire technicians. We do hire singers, the dancers. Everything that you see on board that we saw in the DVD is self-contained. In other words, it's in-house. We hire everyone: the technicians, the singers, the dancers, the backstage crew, the musicians. Everyone is in-house.
Well, how do you start the process if you want to audition? You have to send a demo tape?
Usually they'll send a promotional material to us, and I'll review it at that point and listen to what their playing is like in the ensemble setting. After that, I will call them up and we'll do an audition. Now, the way we do the audition might sound a little primitive, find it a little funny, is it's actually done over the phone, believe it or not. When we can't get out to a place and hold a large audition, it'll be done over the phone, which means we'll send out the music about a half an hour beforehand by email, and then we'll give them about half an hour to look at, which is actually half an hour more than they're given in a live audition. We call them up, ask them to play certain parts from the charts, and take it from there. It's all to do with sight reading. So at that point, I determine where their skills are at in order to be placed in our program.
Do you find you have one source of musicians that's more profitable for you than another?
The source of musicians in terms of their education, we do go after a lot of the jazz students. We don't just go to jazz students, but the reason why we go to them is because we do study a lot of the chords and the theory part of it, and their reading ability is going to be a little stronger, especially when suited to the show bands. The show bands is not a big band, it's not a jazz band, it's the house band. We play every single style of music you could imagine. Latin to swing, to jazz, to R&B, to rock, to pop, everything. You want to be challenged. You want to be in an environment that you're challenged musically in any genre. This is the place to do it.
Well, other than the ability to sight read, is there any other screening that people go through, the health test, what else?
That's usually it. It's an application process, just like any other company. An application, you do the health background, and from there we assign you a shift based on your availability. If you say, hey, I'm available now, and you have a passport and everything, all the documents are ready to go, we set you out on the first available vessel open for you, and we take care of your flights. Flights are all taken care of. Depending on the port, in needing a night's hotel, we would take care of that if the need should be. But we take care of the flights, we take care of the accommodations. You're on board, the health is taken care of should you need it. Food, everything is there. And it is very, it can be an easy life.
Do you take couples do you have many couples that come on?
We do have a lot, we do have couples, definitely.
Both performers?
Yes, as performers, as duos, and parts that make up a unit of a band, for example. Some of our show band musicians are married, and they work on the same ship, depending on the department. It could be a dancer, could be someone who works in the gift shop, could be a purser. If they're married, we do our best to accommodate for them, of course. They're a married couple and they're working together. And well, definitely, yeah, we have couples on board, yes.
What kind of contract do you ask artists to sign, musicians to sign?
Well, really the only thing we ask is it's a seafarer's agreement that just states that you're employed by Carnival Cruise Lines. And entertainment-wise, for show band musicians, again, it's a minimum commitment of 4 months. That really is as simple as it sounds. It can be that way. If you have the skills and you can play and you're ready to go, you can find yourself on a ship very quickly. And 4 months later, you can stay and however you want to do. For me, it was fantastic. When I finished college, I went to the ships, saved a lot of money. A couple of contracts later, made 2 phone calls and paid off all my loans.
That's a good deal, huh?
2 phone calls. How much do I owe? Thank you. How much do I owe? Thank you.
Which begs the question, what is the salary range?
Well, the salary range right now is anywhere between the $450 to $500 a week range, and you get paid every 2 weeks, and you get paid in cash, and you get paid on board. The taxes for U.S., I believe, is federal taxes. You don't pay any of the local taxes where you live or anything like that, but you do get the bigger one taken off. It's a fantastic way to save money and spend it if you want.
And if you go into the conductor or arranger or musical director level, you're paid more?
You are, as a musical director, you are paid more, and you are given your own cabin, which is a nice little perk.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's a nice little perk to have. And depending on the ship, you might have a window. That's nice.
If you want to be a technician, how do you go about getting that job?
With a technician, you usually send in a resume. You'll have or talk to one of the people in our shoreside position about becoming a lighting technician or a sound technician or a backstage technician, automation and so forth. But it's usually a resume. And it's usually through contact, through newspapers, through magazines, through anywhere that they can find information. A lot of times you'll get it through word of mouth. Usually they'll contact the parent Carnival site, carnival.com site, and look for under fun jobs and then search through there, or even calling the 800 number and being directed to the area that you're interested in. And they will guide you through and point you in the right direction.
So there's probably always some jobs available.
There's always something available. There's always a turnaround. There's always something popping up in many different departments. In the musicians department, there's something opening up all the time because the contracts start and end on different dates from other people. And that's in a lot of different departments. It's 513 musicians right now is what we have with 21 vessels. Number 22 coming out in February, March. So you're looking at another 30 plus musicians there. So that's a lot of people, and that's just musicians. That's not to go with dancers, technicians, or even the rest of the departments. On any given ship, you're looking at an average of about 700 crew members.
What is your technical staff? What's the salary for them? And are they treated as also as staff members, or are they treated as crew members?
Technical staff is definitely they are staff members. The salary is in the same range as the musicians, roughly. It could be a 460, 470. It depends on your background, being a sound engineer or a lighting technician or so forth. And we do on board have senior technicians who will then be above the other technicians as the go-to person. But it depends, and it does go up. I mean, the salary does go up after a certain amount of time that you spend with us. You will get raises, you will get increments in your salary. So it's around the same. I'm going to say about 460. It's not too familiar with it. There's a lot of restructuring going on right now for us, but it's very similar in pay to start with. Yeah.
So how many sound? I mean, you must have. So there's 5 or 6 or 10 different venues on the ship.
We have if we have 10 different venues, we'll have a technician. It's called a backstage or a back lounge technician that will take care of all the other lounges on the ship. We do, and then we have the main sound, the main showroom sound technician, light technician, stage manager, automation manager. Some of them they were pyrotechnicians and so forth. So on a given ship, on a big one, you might have about 5 technicians, 4 or 5.
Do the musicians get to have anything to say about what ship or what route or what itinerary?
If the option is there for them, we give it to them. If we need somebody on a particular ship and they don't have any options, not really. But afterwards, if someone comes back to us and they continue to work for us for a number of years, we'll give them a choice. We'll give them a benefit. We'll give them some choices and where they want to go. Sometimes they're in a relationship. We adjust for that if we can, of course. And we certainly will back up our people who are dedicated to the company. You put in time with us and you show us that you want to be with us, and we enjoy who you are, obviously. We'll work with you. We'll put you on ships that you may want to go to.
Do all the musicians kind of stay in the same place? I mean, like a dormitory in a sense?
It kind of is like a dormitory. The cabins are a little small, a little tight, but you do have your own bathroom and shower facilities in the cabin. Most of the time you are sharing with another person. 9 times out of 10 you're in the show band setting. Musician, your roomie is a musician in the show band. So it is staff status. You are part of the staff rather than part of the crew. There's a difference, but as a musician, you're a staff member and you have certain benefits to being that, being able to socialize with the guests on board, for example, whereas the crew are not necessarily able to. However, with that in mind, there is a lot that goes along with it. And musicians, yeah, the entertainment department in general is one big family. We were just having the discussion about the tour that we were having of the school and the number of undergrads that there are, and that you see the same people all the time. Becomes a big family unit. Cruise ships are very similar to that aspect. You do see people every day, all the time. You do become like a family. I mentioned that I could pretty much point to any place on a globe and have somebody there that I could stay with if I ever wanted to travel to that part of the world. From the Philippines to New Zealand to Hong Kong if I wanted to. I know people that I can go and stay with if I ever end up in that area of the world. It's an incredible opportunity, and it was an incredible experience for me to be on there. A ship containing approximately at the biggest 900 crew members. There are 54 nations being represented at any one time, from all over. And you do get to understand different parts of the world by meeting with these people, hanging out with them, and talking with them. So it's an incredible experience. You do become family. You absolutely become family.
How many nights a week do the musicians work?
On a 7-night cruise, you're usually working about 6 nights a week. You're doing a couple of shows every night. Some depending on the itinerary, depending on the size of the vessel, and so forth. You might do a little more playing. But on a 7-day cruise, typically we do our best to give 1 night off a week. But even those hours, you're not working like a 9 to 5 hour sets on board. You're working 2-3 hours a night at the most on some of the ships. It all depends on the entertainment needs for the guests. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're there to do. I mean, we are there to be musicians. We're there to perform. We're there to enjoy what we're doing and visit different parts of the island, of the Caribbean, for example. But we are there to entertain the guests. And we're putting across our own flavor of talents to the guests. So it all depends. Sometimes, depending on circumstances, you might have to change things around and add more entertainment. But it's usually about 6.
And the average cruise is 7 days?
The average cruise, we have anywhere from 3, 4, 5, 7, and sometimes even longer cruises.
And so do they just turn around again and go right back
The
out?
turnaround is very quick. Take, for example, a Sunday ship. The ship will be here on a Sunday, for example, and we do have one of our ships just came back, the Fantasy, and we have another one coming back next year, incidentally. And it's a 7-day cruise. You're in the port on a Sunday. People come on the ship. You go out on your 7-day cruise. You come back early Sunday morning. Those guests disembark the ship, and then you have the new guests come on that same day. That same day you leave. So you're in port from, say, 9 o'clock or earlier, 7 o'clock in the morning until about 3:30, 4, depending on the time in port. And you turn around and you do a 7-day cruise again. 3-day cruise, 4-day cruise, same way. It's that very same day the turnaround is right then.
What's the population on the average ship?
On our biggest ships, we're looking at about, with crew members and with guests altogether at maximum capacity, some ships will hold up to about 5,000 people.
That's incredible.
It is a floating city. It most definitely is a floating city. And the lounges on the ship, like you just saw in the DVD, it's 3 stories high. You can seat anywhere up to 1,000 people or more at a time. Some of the smaller was 600, 500, but they are span 3 decks, and they're multi-million dollar shows and multi-million-dollar lounges. It's quite a deal, quite something.
Well, what's the downside?
The downside, well, I would to be honest about the downside is that after a while, it can become monotonous, but at the same time, it all depends on you. If you find it monotonous, there's definitely a lot of things that you can do with your time on board. For example, there's plenty of practice time. Plenty of practice time. You can become a monster player in a very short amount of time and just do the shows at night and keep practicing, keep jamming. We have a resource learning center, crew learning center on all our ships where you can learn a different language if you want to. You can learn your computer skills. You can do anything like that. Downside is if you're out on the port for too long and you come back late, your home is gone. It's not waiting for you. Luckily, that's never happened to me. But the downside, I guess, would be that it might become monotonous.
Does a typical person on the cruise ship, the musicians, do they have to have a place on the shore to live too?
No, your room and board and accommodations, everything is on board.
For the whole 3 months or whatever.
For the whole
period.
3, 4 months, however it is you want to come on board. Everything is there. Your food is there for you. Your cabin is there. Your room is there. Your cabin steward is there for you. You have a cabin steward that's assigned to you to come in and make your bed.
I like that.
Right? Make your bed, change your sheets, pick up the towels, clean up after if you're pretty messy. They'll do that. We usually ask that you tip them like $1 a day, which is really nothing when you think about it. The amount of work that they put into it. You leave the room, you come back, it's spotless. I mean,
Well, so that there's no health insurance per se because there's probably a doctor on board, right?
there is a doctor on board, but as far as health insurance is concerned, which is a very good question you bring up, is one of the requirements that we do ask is you do a pre-employment physical. And the reason for that is that once you're cleared medically and you come on board, should anything happen to you, from the littlest to anything major requiring surgery like that, you are covered. Carnival will cover that because you're coming on with a clean bill of health, and you have a cold, you have a cough, anything like that that you need. The physician is on board, the nurses are there. It's a floating city. You have everything there that you could need. So as far as a health insurance per se, it's not really an insurance, but you are definitely covered on board should anything happen or should you need anything.
So if you're on the one particular ship,
Mm-hmm.
you go to the same ports every week.
Again, depending on the itinerary, we have a couple of ships that do eastern and western runs. So one week they'll do an eastern Caribbean, the one week they'll do a western, and they'll switch it. One of our ships will go to the Caribbean during the winters, and in the summer it'll port out of New York and go up to Canada. During the summer, we have a ship on the west coast that goes up to Alaska. During the winter, it'll go to Hawaii, and it'll go down to Acapulco as well, and do a lot of different runs that way.
So how do you deal with seasickness? You ever get seasick?
I've never actually been seasick, which is good. I've had a couple of people come across my path who have been seasick who weren't doing too well. I fended off quite a few tropical depressions and hurricanes out in the middle of the ocean. That was fun. You don't see a lot of guests, let's put it that way. You don't see a lot of guests if you're running away from storms.
Oh, yeah.
You do see a lot of those little paper bags lying around, those sick bags. But seasickness has never bothered me. It may have bothered some other people, but you get used to it. And on a ship that big, you will not feel it at all.
How long are you actually on the water at any given time? About 24 hours?
Yeah, we will have sea days where you are the entire day at sea before getting to your next port. And if you're leaving, say for example, you leave out of Miami and you got to port the next day. You leave out at 3:30, you get to the port at 7 in the morning. So if it's a sea day, you're out there the entire time. On the West Coast, we have a Mexican Riviera run where there's 2 sea days back to back. 2 straight days, or actually maybe more like 2.5, including your home port before getting to the next one because it's so far down to get to Puerto Vallarta, Cabo San Lucas, and Mazatlan, for example. So you go that route and then go back.
When you go into port, do you stay overnight?
Again, it depends on if it's a particular cruise, if it's a particular itinerary, a particular stop, a special stop. But the Destiny, for me, it was a great run because you stayed in Barbados till 10 o'clock at night. You stayed in Aruba till 11 o'clock at night. And you stayed in Puerto Rico till about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. But you don't necessarily do overnight. Some of our itinerary does call for that. For example, the ship that goes to Hawaii will have a couple of overnights, but not all of them have the overnights.
That's it. Do you hire name performers?
We do have guest artists that come on board. We have a gentleman that used to sing with the Platters. We have a gentleman trombone player that has played with Buddy Rich and Sinatra and a bunch of other people. We do have guest entertainers as far as, or we call them fly-on acts that are jugglers, for example, from a famous Mexican family and from everywhere. We've always got the flying entertainers coming on board.
So you don't do theatrical productions or anything like that?
As far as theatrical productions in terms of speaking roles and acting roles, things like that, no, not to that aspect. It'd be more of a reference towards a Vegas style, even though our shows are very wide in styles and genres. We have shows that are just specifically country shows. We have shows that, one of them is called Nightclub Express, that takes you on a journey of nightclubs from the 40s to present, with all the music encompassed in it. And it's mostly choreographed dancers on the ships, and the 2 singers and the show band that make up the visual production, and you have everything behind the scenes with the technicians and so on board. So it's not really a speaking role where you'll be on and doing a Shakespearean play or anything like that. You will be doing something like you saw. Actually, that is what is presented on board for those shows, for the production shows. There are production shows. But there are shows, we have comedians. We have the singers. We have jugglers. We have all those different styles of entertainment on other nights that are not production nights.
Do you have theme cruises?
We do sometimes have theme cruises. Being Halloween, we have extensive Halloween themes going on our ships right now, and Christmas and so forth. We do have that. We will have sometimes we'll have chartered cruises for anything really, any kind of group, any kind of corporation that wants to charter a ship with all of their people and so forth. Jazz cruises happen. every so often. Rock the Boat is one that we have that's pretty big. A lot of bands come out and literally rock the boat. You know, so it's we do have those cruises. As Carnival Cruise Lines, the Carnival Corporation, we actually own a lot of other cruise lines. We own Princess and all of their subsidiary companies. We own Holland America. We own Seabourn. We own all of you know, the subsidiaries that come with that. We have a lot of ships. The other cruise lines, the way they work, a lot of them will work the same way that we do. However, the advantage with us, and especially with what I do, is that we very actively go after the individual, where some will rely on agencies to do their finding for them. Some of the vessels you will have 6-piece bands, 7-piece bands. Sometimes you have just 5-piece bands. There are a couple out there that'll have an 8 or 9-piece band. Carnival Cruise Lines is very dedicated to having 8 and 10-piece bands. When I joined, it was 11-piece bands, and we did a little changing around, try to modernize it a bit, and go into a 10-piece band with different instrumentation. With what we do, with the music that you play, the music that we perform, we're very free to play a lot of different styles. We're not set to a certain regimen. And that's not to say that the other cruise lines are set to a lot of regimen, because I can't really speak with a lot of knowledge of it, because I've spent all of my time with Carnival, but I've had many friends who've worked on other cruise lines, and they've always come back to Carnival because some of the music that they play wasn't as demanding, and it was very easy, very structured, if you will. But that's not to say that there's other things to provide. With us as staff members and with musicians, we have a lot of perks that other cruise lines don't. For example, some of the cruise lines have curfews where staff are not allowed up in guest areas after a certain amount at a certain hour. We don't have that. Some other cruise lines have uniforms that you have to wear. Got to wear this, got to wear that. We don't have that. As long as you're not running around in a ship at 9 o'clock in the evening on a formal night in ripped jeans and T-shirt, you're wearing appropriate attire, that's fine. In that respect, we are a lot more flexible, freedom-wise, and musically-wise, we are very flexible with the music that we play and we perform. And as I said, with the production shows that we have on board, they're very demanding. Speaking on a trumpet level, lead trumpet charts, you're not going to go below concert B flat or concert D for very long. You're up in the world of E's and F's for quite a while sometimes. Yeah, it's painful.
Switch me to second trumpet.
Put you on solo chair.
Well, you've been giving advice pretty much the last hour, but would you like to close with any words of advice for the students?
I think if I were to give you a word of advice, with my own experience, I found out that the music industry is very much a business, and I learned that very early on in my career as a musician. I started playing professionally when I was about 15, 16 years old, and I did a lot of touring and so forth. I'm very lucky to play with a lot of very well-known artists who are still around today, very well-known artists. And I think one of the biggest things for me when I was in the show band as a musical director is attitude goes so much further than talent sometimes. You can be a fantastic musician, but if your attitude isn't the right attitude, if you're not that person that may be receptive of things, it may not be the right combination. The attitude goes so far. Knowing that the industry is a business, is a relentless business, it can sometimes be a heartless business. Knowing that it's a business and knowing that you're representing yourself is so important. Being able to market yourself, being able to be your own agent, being able to be your own promoter, being able to be your own tour manager. I did a tour of Canada from east to west, and I did the entire tour, planned the entire tour from hotels to chartered flights. I had a sponsorship. We did all of that, and I took the reins of it and booked every single thing from east to west coast. Being able to promote yourself and being able to have the ability to represent yourself in a business manner goes a lot further. Now, we're only speaking at a musician level. You know, musicians in general are very anti-corporate. You know, we don't, you know, down with the man. But it's the more that you realize that this is a business and you represent yourself accordingly, it goes very far. You'd be surprised how many phone calls I will get and how many people leave messages on my answering machine that start, yeah, I'm a player, guitar, delete, and that's honesty. That's honest. He could be a fantastic player, but I got 12 ums in like 10 seconds. Now to you, if you're on the other side of the phone and you're looking for a musician for your band, an established band, and you've got somebody the other again, right? Am I right? I mean, let's face it. I mean, you could be a fantastic guitar player, fantastic drummer, chops like you wouldn't believe. But if you're not representing yourself, you're not realizing the industry. You're only hurting yourself. You don't have to dress in a suit and tie. You don't have to, you know, be your hair cut to a T or anything like that. But it's the way you speak to somebody on the phone, the way you represent yourself in person. All those little things that my mom and dad taught me. You know, my dad would smack me across the head sometimes when I didn't do it. Meant something. Look somebody in the eye. Talk to that person. Shake that person's hand. All those little business etiquettes that we sometimes don't think about. Revisit them and think about it. Knowing that this is a business and it's a huge industry, the sooner you realize that, the better you're going to be. Knowing how to promote yourself, knowing how to market yourself, knowing how to talk about yourself in a third person. I've got this great musician. This guy can read anything that you throw at him. Who is it? Well, it's me. I've done it. I've done it. I was in Atlantic City. I was there 2 days, and I had a gig the next night. Because I went around and I talked and I spoke to people and I met everyone that I possibly could. 2 weeks later, I was the #1 sub guy on every trumpet players list on there, and I was 17, 18 years everyone's junior in that city at that time. So here's this little 22-year-old kid, or sorry, 24-year-old kid at the time, you know, coming into Atlantic City, and I'm talking to people and I'm playing everywhere. You know, and obviously having the ability to do it, to back it up, certainly will help. But the fact that I was able to go and talk to these people and represent myself goes a lot further than you think. The sooner you know that, the sooner you use it to your advantage. Get your own website. Easy to do. Everyone knows how to do a website. I mean, that's second nature. Knowing how to promote yourself. Record it. Send it out. Get a promotional package with yourself. Get an 8x10 if you have to, both in your acts or whatever it is that you want to, however you want to promote yourself. You want to throw it out to the people so that they see it, they can't miss it. You know, we'll get a promotional package with a presentation folder. It's got this wicked art in the front. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to check that out. That looks pretty cool. I'll look at it and I'll listen to it, and it will grab the attention of the person that you're after. And that's what it is. Practice, of course, playing and doing everything behind it and having that product ready. But to think of yourself as a product, not as an artist, as a product, will give you the ability to perform and be that artist, which is the reason why we're all here. Which is the reason why we're musicians, why we're players, why we are in the industry. That's the way it was for me. I still play, I still promote myself, I still have my side gigs that I do, you know, and it goes very far being able to have that and being able to promote yourself in that setting. I know this great guy. Who is it? It's me.
Well, thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you.